Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all feeling well. So let's get into it. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. You're all heroes. I did not expect these many people. I'm so overwhelmed. This is like my first time at such a major conference, and I hope I can share everything that I have with you at any point of time, right? At any point of time, if you feel like it, please do let me know. Please raise your hands. I'll stop and let's just have a understanding between all of us, right? And just to clarify with you guys, from the size of the crowd, it seems like most of you might have way more of a length of technical expertise than I have. I've been in my job for like 2 years now, and before that I've been like in college and stuff like that. So if at any point I'm saying something and you feel like that's wrong, she doesn't know that, right? Please stop me. Even if you think it's wrong, everybody else deserves to know, and I probably just don't know that. I'll be saying things from my perspective, from my background, and from where I'm from. And a little bit more about me. I'm Aquarius, not the rest of the stuff. You'll see that I like gifts a lot. And I'm coming all the way from India. I live in a small sunny town called Cochin in the southern end, right below Bangalore. And I've been a software engineer for 2 years now with the same company, and that is Baker Hughes. Baker Hughes was merged with GE. What we do is that it's oil drilling. So it's the software side of oil drilling. So the company I work for, when oil is drilled in any part of the world, be it like the Middle East, in America, we need oil everywhere. So the depth at which the oil resides, how much heat is produced when we dig for oil, all that data which is generated, we plot that, we measure that so that we can efficiently extract oil. That's the kind of stuff I work for. I work on the front end of that. Now what happens when you work on something as challenging as that? Oil rigs are challenging. The technology for oil rigs do not change, the hardware technology don't change for approximately 30 odd years. Right? They want it to be stable, because if we make a mistake, people die. You don't want that. You want it to be properly tested. You want it to run properly. But is that how front end works? I don't think so. So how does the front end work? The front end, and first when I came in, I was supposed to be software engineer. And then they were like, software engineer is too broad. What do you do inside software engineering? Web development, a bit more front end. But then I learned Node, and Node is not front end, Node is the back end. So I'm not front end anymore. I know a lot of libraries, maybe. So it's a bit of a confusing place right now to be in JavaScript. And especially from a newcomer's point of view, I feel that JavaScript is not as clear and easy as it once was to navigate the path or the ecosystem of JavaScript, right? So in the last year alone in my company, and we are doing all these new iterations or testing of the things we want to do, right? So we have a display of the data that's being generated to us, and we want to create the latest, the best display of how in real time when data comes to us, we want to display. At this point, one rig in Saudi is having this much temperature happening on it, and the oil is at 3 miles down below the Earth's surface, right? And some other well in Russia has oil 5 miles below the Earth's surface, and you have like this much water below it. So if you take out oil after a particular time, water will come in. And we want all these metrics to be plotted across all these things, and we have that much data coming in. So we want to try and experiment with the latest and the greatest JavaScript libraries so that we can show it to our end user. We can show the complexity of our data to the end user by managing it in the front end. That's what we are trying to do. And for the past 1 year, we've been trying to do that, and we've been hearing all these fun names. And remember, I come from the other side of the world, so we just hear things that has happened after they happen in Google I/O. Oh, there's some new change in Angular, we should check that out. Or after something happened at the Facebook summit, you know what, I think React 16 got out. It looks nice. We should check it out. So for the past 1 year, we had 2 different languages. I had to work with Java and JavaScript. I had 2 frameworks. I had Angular and I had Polymer.js. And I had a bunch of different visualization libraries that we were trying to do these proof of concepts with. And it was like so overwhelming because it's 1 year, so many things, and we have to make a product out of this. How do we do it, right? And so after going an entirety of 8 months through testing, making, breaking and all these, I realized if you ask me today about the core concepts or anything of these things, the amount of information that I retained about these was very little. If you ask me to go in depth and to compare Angular versus React, I'd be very hard pressed to tell you which one I prefer, because I just had a rough time working with all of these. By the time I'm ready with one, a new version releases, so we have to check that, and that's overwhelming for somebody who's new to this. And so after a point, I was just like, come on, this is not working out. What is happening? I need to figure out a way to deal with this. And so I went back to the basics. What if all these fancy stuff is just on top? Let me figure out how JavaScript, the vanilla ECMAScript JavaScript works first, so that once I understand this, I can go forward and I can understand what these things built on top of JavaScript are like, right? So I dove a bit more deeper into vanilla JavaScript. Hello JavaScript. So let's go back to the latest and greatest version of JavaScript that we have today. JavaScript, the latest version, it is the de facto standard for web scripting. If we think about the World Wide Web, we have 3 technology that comes to mind. We have HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript. 3, nothing else. It's beaten out everything else to be the de facto standards. Now what about JavaScript? It's very beginner friendly. If you struggle with something like Angular and you go back to your basic JavaScript, it's so easy. Anybody can make a page with JavaScript like this. You integrate jQuery to it, just add link jQuery on top. You can make any functionality that you want on a page with just JavaScript and jQuery. It just takes more time, right? So I was having this journey with JavaScript, right? And I was thinking, if JavaScript is so easy, why are we moving away from it? And that's when I thought, and that's when I realized, and that's when I looked at my own code. What am I doing wrong with just JavaScript? And this is a sample. This is not my own code. This is much better than what my own code was at that point of time. And I can see some people cringing. Oh my God, this looks terrible. And so this block of code, as terrible as it will run smoothly on JavaScript. So that's one problem. When things are too easy, people are prone to make mistakes. And when those mistakes work, they build habits which are wrong, inherently wrong, which they cannot carry forward. So if there's anybody here who has learned their first programming language was something like C, they know how to build code, how to write code. C is very fussy. You don't put a semicolon, it does not work. It forces you to build good habits with code when you use C. But JavaScript is very forgiving. JavaScript, you don't put a semicolon, no problem. JavaScript, you add a number with a string, no problem. JavaScript is very forgiving and very tolerant of all the faults we make as a beginner. And so if your first language in learning computer science is JavaScript, that's dangerous because you internalize all these bad practices, right? So these are all the terrible practices I had, and I'll own up to it. I had these until last year, and I had to go through an immense time of reviewing my own code, reflecting what am I doing wrong, what am I doing bad, to figure out these are the things I'm doing so that I can get better from them. So in my JavaScript file used to be just one big JS file in which all the code I wanted was just rammed in. It had so many global variables, right? And so many functions so many code lines that were just repeated. I could have just made a function out of them, but no, I just repeated everything, right? I had so many improper formats. All those things were problems with my code that I recognized because I left the frameworks on top. I went back to JavaScript and I did some soul searching. Why is my code not working the way I wanted? It's because of this. Because the way I used JavaScript was, I wouldn't say it was incorrect because JavaScript was running, but it was not necessarily correct because JavaScript was, the person who built JavaScript did not intend people who wrote in JavaScript to write in such terrible formats, right? So what do we do about that? So one of the solutions I found which worked for me, and am I going too fast? Is there any doubts? Please raise your hands. So no doubt so far. If at any point anybody disagrees or anybody has comments, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. So one solution that I found to my troubles with JavaScript and its libraries was learning more into the latest release, ES6 JavaScript, where they allowed you to make objects, to make classes, and to create a more structured code. Now I can say proudly that I've read more into this, that I've learned to use objects more, and I've cleaned up my act. I use JavaScript, I write better. Inherently I've learned to use the classes and the async await, all those things that the latest JavaScript comes with. I've learned to realize what those are and to apply them so that I can make my fundamental JavaScript code better. And I've realized that if you want to improve how you use libraries which are built on top of JavaScript, inherently you need to understand how JavaScript itself works, and you need to have clean JavaScript code inside. Only then can you make good programs on top of JavaScript. So, and let's talk a bit about why I'm going for functional JavaScript. All right. So this is the kind of stuff that I work with on a daily basis. Some of my, like I said, the legacy applications that I work with, that I maintain. So while we have the proof of concepts and the R&D happening in one side of my company, we also have existing products on the other side. So this is how that looks like. So we have a proper database and a proper backend where all the business logic is written, and just we have a front end for the styles and the pretty stuff. So if you remember back about maybe 10 years back, the JavaScript, CSS, HTML, how it worked was that HTML was the functional block of data. It had all the stuff that you needed as just a block. CSS added the pretty things on top, and JavaScript made everything move and interact with each other. That's just it. It was very simple. But what do we have today? Today we have JavaScript in the backend and the front end, and it has created a layer between the backend and the client. So JavaScript today, it handles business logic. How does it do that? And this I cannot say that you can do this with vanilla JavaScript, because you can, but it will not be secure. That's another reason why all these frameworks have come into existence. We'll go into that. So in today's environment, we can see while there is the database and the backend, its prominence has decreased, and JavaScript has come into prominence in front. It controls what you get from the backend. It moves into what you can control in a browser. It has come into prominence. So if you want to learn about how to use the different libraries and the different things which are built on top of JavaScript, you need to learn JavaScript in its purest form. And that is one thing I feel a lot of people have missed, because when I talk to people, especially developers, what do you do these days? Oh, I work with Angular. I work with React. I work with Redux. I work with Vue. Oh, so do you use JavaScript for anything? Oh yeah, I use JavaScript with all of these. The number of people who work with vanilla JavaScript and who know the ins and outs and at least the basic functional working blocks of vanilla JavaScript is decreasing, and that's not good. Because only if you have good habits in JavaScript will that habits carry on forward. And so the important question is why? Why are we creating these functional modules? Why are we moving away from the traditional system to the functional and the modular system that we have today, right? And that in part has to do with how the use of web applications have evolved. So earlier on we just had web applications for the web, and that was just a website which is displayed on a laptop or a desktop, simple web. But now that's not the case. Now we have the web everywhere. We have web coming to the IoT. We have web in the mobile. We have web in not just our desktop, we have laptops. We have web essentially coming into different sections, right? So when you have so much going on top of the web, you want so much more functionality to come inherent into web. And you want so much functionality, you want so many things to work on top of web, then how can we make that work? And so there has been a shift from how the monolith has shifted into microservices. So when you want to add more things, you pick and choose what has to be loaded at a particular time. So earlier on, we had a single monolith, and the single monolith was loaded into your application. As soon as you loaded up, the entire thing was loaded in. How it works now, if you want something smooth, fast, with so many animations, so many whatever bells and whistles that you want on top of a website, it is all there, but for the speed, you load exactly what you need at that point of time. You pick and choose exactly what you need at a particular point of time, and the browser loads that. So you want everything to be modular and to be separate, so that at a particular point of time when the browser needs it, it can load a particular module, and later when it needs something else, it can choose the next module. It's all broken up into simple usable packets. That's how the microservice architecture, I feel, is influencing how we develop and use JavaScript today. So the important question is, but why? Why are we using this? Why does that have to do with the rise of libraries, right? So to handle all these stuff on the front end, we use libraries. Now, if we have something like React or Angular, you know how easy it is. The amount of time for a developer, it takes a developer to write code that can handle an animation or a video is much more simpler when you use a library or a framework as compared to Vanilla.js. I admit that. So, when we use a library, or when we use, or in this case, when I say library, I mean both of them. It decreases the coding time, and let's admit it, the people who build something, they're probably wiser than us. They've tested it well. So rather than building something from scratch by hand, it's probably much more easier for our QA people if we use a framework, because it might just be better. And at the same time, it adds more functionality and more efficiency, and you can add and use more modular packets, and that's the why here. You can add and use more modular packets of functionalities that you need, but at the same time, you can keep the web application small and improve the performance. That is why we are using it. At this point of time, I've been going on for a long time, so I hope you guys are still with me. You guys still with me? Yes, thank you. So, what do we have to do? Now that we know all this, and we still have a problem remaining. We still have a large number of libraries, and even though we understand the why and the context behind it, what do we have to do now to going forward to handle all these? The WH questions. So the reason I spent so much time giving you the context behind it is that psychologically, human beings are more comfortable dealing with the topic if they know why. If you know why you have to do something, or exactly how you have to do something, apparently a task gets much more easier. And I've noticed that in my life too. So every single time I've had a task, if my superior has, or my manager has told me, you have to do something and it has to be done exactly this way A, it's much easier for me to do it. Now if he has to say, you just have to do that task, then I have to figure out the implementation details and everything by myself. And that's difficult. The same way, when it comes to a library, knowing everything about a library, or knowing the details about the library and why you are using it, why you are preferring a particular library over another is a key detail that you should know when you are working with a technology stack. The first time around, I did not know this. The first time around, that's maybe one of the reasons why earlier in the slide you might have seen, I showed you for 1 year we had almost 5 different libraries, 2 framework and 3 libraries. We were just iterating through different products. We did not know what we were looking for. So the first thing first, you need to decide what you're looking for, and you need to know which library fits the bill of exactly what you want to build. Otherwise you're just going in the dark. You have to do your homework about the context and the specifications of what you need. Otherwise you'll be lost in this forest because there are lots of libraries. I'm not kidding anymore. Collect some metadata. So exactly how much performance does React do better than Angular? And in most of the time, if you read data like, oh, in my application React does better than Angular, fine. For that author of a particular blog post, maybe that works. But have you tried that for your application? Have you tried building a demo for your application using Angular versus React versus Vue, and then have you decided? Knowing the specifications behind a library, knowing why you are choosing. For example, React uses one-way binding, Angular uses two-way binding. If you know which one suits your business needs better or your particular need better, then you can make an informed choice. So in the end, we ended up choosing React because we wanted to update our data quickly, and that's what the virtual DOM did for us. One way, and our data just came one way. Our server gave us data from the oil rig about how much oil and how much the data was changing in the oil rig, and we just needed to update that and show our customers really quickly. Right? So for us, React was A-okay, it fit the bill. But in your product, maybe that's not the case. Maybe you need two-way binding. You need some data from the customer and you have data coming from the other side too. In which case, even though in my case React is doing better, Angular might be better for you. So do not look at how other people are doing it. Do your own research. Find out everything, all the metadata you can know about the library you're choosing, and do that in the initial phase. Because once you're into it, changing all this, it's hard. It's hard day's labor. So make sure you know the WH questions first, and be sure to ask what, why, how, when, all those questions. Be sure to have all of that ready before you get in and decide and lock in that one library that you're using. Ask people. Now, this is another thing that I found that was my weakness. When I was developing something and I had a bug, I had a problem, of course I talked and I said, well, I have a problem. But I never asked, what do you think about my problem? When you reach out and when you ask your mentor, your peers, your juniors, everybody, if you reach out and ask, what do you think about my problem? Or what do you think about this feature? You might get some unexpected answers, and that might give you ideas. And some of my solutions and the best ideas that I've given to my company have come from just simply discussing what I'm doing with the people around me. Just ask people, is this okay? Do you think it will be okay if this takes this much time to load? Do you think it's okay if this is how much performance that this can give? Do you think it's okay if I choose Angular with its two-way binding model for our product instead of React? Just ask, just put it out there. Maybe you'll get some advice, but be sure to ask. One other thing that I really noticed that I did was that when it comes to learning a particular language or a framework, I go to the React, I go to the docs tutorial. I start off, if you know React, you'll know it uses a component architecture, right? So I learn about components, I learn about how to load components, and then in the side I see a topic and I read it. I don't understand the docs. I try implementing it. It's not working out for me. And this is in my initial stage, in my proof of concept stage, and it's not working out. So what do? Initially, what I did was, well, the major parts are working. The components loading, all that stuff is working. So this stuff is fine. I'm just going to ignore it. That's what I did the first time around. Turns out it was a key part. It was this little thing called when component will load. and we really needed that. So when component will load or something that, I forget the exact word, that defines, so if you're doing a single page application, that was one of the functions in React which controlled how a new object or a new class was loaded in the place of where your old class was. So it was very key part of it. So if you're doing a proof of concept, or if you're checking out a library and you find a part of it that you don't understand, please never ignore it. Reach out to their forums or to the community. Reach out to your colleagues. It's a part of the ask that I said before, but like it's human tendency to stick with what we know. But always try to be uncomfortable, especially in JavaScript. It's all right. Everybody's uncomfortable. It's JavaScript, so it's okay. And yes, finally, this I had promised that I'll tell you about. So the reason why my session is called A Week in JavaScript Hell is because there was a time last year, 1 week almost entirely, I remember, where I screwed up. I screwed up bad. I was supposed to deliver something on Monday. That Friday, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. It was bad. So I was wondering, damn it, I've dug myself into a hole. I don't know if I'm going to get fired from the company or what. This is really bad. What the hell do I do now? This thing is confusing me. I have no idea what to do. I don't know how I can reach out anymore. So what do I do if I screw up so bad while dealing with all these frameworks and all these complicated stuff, right? So own up your failure. Okay, genius. Own up to my failure. Like, I've not heard that before. No, I found a really specific way. Stick with me on this. So what I did was, I was really sad. I was like depressed and all that. But I also made it a point to go up to my manager and to the senior developer in my group, and like I told them, I screwed up. Can you give me some actionable advice on what I can do so that this never happens? Like, what you think I should have done, or what you think I can do as the next step so that I'll never do this mistake again. Make it formal. Go with a pen, write down everything they tell you. Okay, don't write down the cuss words, but write down the important actionable steps. And I found out, and I've screwed up a lot of times after that too, but I found out every single time you ask somebody genuinely, I've screwed up, can you help me? I really want to fix this. Can you help me? Can you give me some actionable steps, right? There's not a single person that I've met in my life, thankfully, who has said, no, screw you. No. It's latent human tendency, especially for engineers, that if you tell them this is not working and I need to fix this, even if it's you, your product, whatever it is, if you tell them that, they'll be like, let me sit with you, let me check this for a while. And then they'll be like, you know what, I think this is the problem. I think you can do A, B, and C, and that should be all right. Right? So write down A, B, and C in your notebook or in your laptop or wherever it is that you take notes. And the most important thing is follow up with them afterwards. 1 week, tell them. The best thing is if you look them in the eye and tell them at that point, oh wow, that sounds like really nice advice. Give me 1 week, I'll get back to you on what I did with that. If you tell them that, like your own brain after 3 days, man, remember you told that guy you'll tell him 1 week later what you did. So do that. Next time you see him in the hallway, he'll smile at you. Shit, I've not done that thing. He told me I have to do it and report back to him in 1 week. Your own brain keeps you up to date, So that's the best thing you can do. Talk to the person who you've impacted the most, ask for improvement, and follow up on it. Do those actionable steps they tell you. Take that, and even if you don't complete it, take that little step and tell them. Follow up, even if you did nothing, tell them after 1 week why you didn't do something or what you did. So what my manager told me was that I had to learn JavaScript, and that's why you see the session today. He told me when I screwed up so much with React that I have to go back. You have to learn what ES6 JavaScript is and then come back, because you lack the fundamentals to learn this thing and to try out. And that's why I'm standing here, because he gave me that really good advice. I followed through on it. I found out how amazing and powerful JavaScript was on its own, and I felt like, you know what, this is something I should share with other people. And that's why I'm standing here. So the people you're working with, they're really smart people. They're people who are just as smart or maybe even smarter than you. Listen to them. They can help you. And always, 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 if you take nothing else from this talk, follow up with the people who give you some actionable advice. Trust me, when you tell them, when you go back and you tell them, you know what, you think you told me that last week? I did that. It was great. It worked for me. You know, they give you a smile, and you know internally they feel like Mr. Miyagi. You know, everybody wants to be Mr. Miyagi. Who does not want to be this really cool Asian dude? So, and another big thing, and the mistake avalanche is what led to my confrontation. So the mistake avalanche is when you have one mistake, one teeny tiny little mistake, and you're like, this is a tiny mistake. I'm going to ignore this and focus on the other important stuff, right? One teeny mistake. And then one teeny mistake, when you ignore it, becomes a slightly larger but still ignorable mistake. And then slightly later, when it goes into production, it breaks, all hell breaks loose, and then they find out you wrote that code and it's a huge avalanche and shit drops on top of your head. That's the mistake avalanche. Do not, and of course, sometimes the mistake avalanche is unavoidable, but the best thing to do is, if you have a mistake avalanche, you know, note it down somewhere. I use notes. That's half of this presentation should have started with use notes. They save your life. So if you find a mistake, or if you know something that might not be good, something that you know is not what is expected from you as a software developer, make it a point to let the people who affect know about this. You know, there will be some manager, some person that you report to, let them know there is this tiny problem. It shouldn't be a problem, but it still exists. So just take a look at it. You know, this thing exists, so that the tiny problem remains small, cute, fuzzy, and tiny, and it does not land on top of your head. Avoid that. We've almost reached the summary of the thing now. So in summary, this is what I wanted to tell you guys about. There's no single way to learn or to use JavaScript. You know, JavaScript is very flexible. It's by design, it's very flexible. And if you're a person new to computer science, JavaScript is one of the best things you can learn. You know, it's an up-to-date software. Like, it's being used right now everywhere, and it just gives you a starting platform to come in and explore the web, right? So JavaScript is really great. It's a really beautiful piece of technology. But, and never forget, Vanilla.js by itself is powerful. You need to check it out if you haven't. It's beautiful and it's powerful at the same time, and it can do a lot more things than it used to. And keep refreshing, or in my case, I had to just fresh them because I didn't have any proper basics. I just don't know where I came into. I'm really surprised I was a software engineer and my company hired me in the first place. You know, when I started freshing my basics, I was like, whoa, there were so many things I did not know. So if you notice, this 40-minute session, I've never been under the impression that I could tell you guys about something technical, because I'm still learning the technical stuff myself. This is more or less like, this is where I screwed up. Guys, don't screw up like this. It's bad. So that's basically what I wanted to talk with you guys. And most importantly, make sure you ask the WH questions about everything. You know, especially if it comes to the JavaScript libraries, be sure to ask your WH questions, know the metadata about all your libraries. Why are you using that particular library for your particular application? You know, that makes all the difference. Trust me, when you know the why, the what and the how starts falling into place. You know, if you know why you're using React, why you're using one-way binding, then the answer to that complex solution might be a little bit more easier, because you know why you want to use it, how the customer will be seeing it, and having that metadata helps you visualize what the answer should be, and it helps you to reach to what the answer could be. You know, so that makes all the difference when you're doing development. And of course, we'll all fuck up sometimes. I hope there's nobody below 18 here. So we'll all screw up sometimes. You know, we just need to accept it, forgive ourselves, and just make improvements so that hopefully we don't do the same mistake twice, but let's just break stuff, fix it fast, and just move on. Hopefully it never happens again. Just there. And it's QA time. How am I doing on the time? Am I good?
4 minutes.
Oh, 4 minutes, okay. Any questions? Any questions? No? Yes?
What was the feedback you got?
The feedback?
The actionable feedback that you asked for?
Yeah, so that's what I said. Vanilla JavaScript, that was my major actionable feedback. Yes. Please, you guys are all sleeping through my session. Nobody has any questions, no comments. I'm very sad. Any other questions? Oh no.
Going once, twice, up. There's one
Yes,
question.
please. How did I switch? So at that point, it was not really my decision. It was like my manager came in one day and said, you know what, I've heard about this really nice library called React. They say that, you can handle Vue with it and it's faster than Angular. So you know what, you guys stop working on Angular. Here you go, this is the website link to it. Just try that. That's how it happened, pretty much. It was very sudden one day. I was really I want to finish Angular today. And he was like, don't worry about Angular. We are throwing that out. So I was very depressed for a while. That happened. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah.
Did they regret the change?
They're still checking out other stuff all the time, After that, they brought on Polymer.js, and then they realized, you know what, Polymer.js is dead, nobody is using that. So they went back to React. Right now they are in React. And last I heard of that, and I moved to a different product line last month. That's where I learned Java because I'm also in 2 different things. The last I heard, GE has a custom thing built on top of Angular called Swirl, and that's what they're trying to use now. I feel bad for the engineers who have to do a custom thing on top of Angular. That sounds horrible. Poor people. Yes.
So you had to rewrite the whole application in React, or
Yes, we had to rewrite the whole thing. So it was not really an application. Like I said, at that point we were just doing proof of concepts just to check out for little things. So we could just throw out, and we had the freedom and flexibility to do that because we were a large enough team. So we have a proper legacy application software running in one side, which was what I showed the circa 2008, right? We had that, but at the same time, we are experimenting and trying out new things so that we know in the future this is what we want to build, for keeps. That's how we're doing things. Thank you.
How about a big round of applause?
Thank you.